Hello again, YouTube. I'm feeling very. I don't really know how to describe it, but with all this talk about baby boomers and millennials, you never hear about about my generation, about Generation X, the one that has been screwed by our own parents. I was just going to give some like instances throughout my growing up, and hope people can share in the comments or something. But when I was a kid, I had to start buying my own clothes at 14. Not because my parents didn't have money, but because I wouldn't, in my dad's words, I was thought I was too good for the clothes they bought. But when I was a teenager, this was the 90s. It was stupid, but clothing was everything back then. If you wore something that was perceived as cheap, everybody would rip on you. And when I tried to tell my parents that, especially my dad, he would have nothing of it. And he would just tell me things like, "If you want clothes that you want to, if you want clothes that you like, you need to buy them." I mean, this was when I was like beginning of high school, 14. Who has a job at 14? Who can get a job at 14? Um, it just it's insane the shit that these baby boomer parents did to Generation X. They have just ruined us. Like I said, I had to start buying my own clothes basically at 14 if I didn't want to have just cheap bargain stuff. Not because they didn't have the money, because my dad wouldn't do it. He was such a cheap motherfucker to us. My brother, same way. He was always having to get like hand me down rented instruments because he was in the band. I don't remember them. Well, you know what? They did buy They bought him a French horn, not a French horn, trombone. They did buy the trombone, but everything else was rented. Um, I know the slightest thing growing up, and they would come down like a freaking hammer. I was spanked as a kid several times just for rolling my eyes. I mean, nowadays kids argue and we don't do anything to them. We just say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that," and then that's it. We were freaking beat if we argued. One time, so my dad is legendary for his lack of patience. I'll put it that way. And in the mornings, I used to have to make school lunches for me and my brother. Every morning, it was my job. I hated it. I fucking hated it because he would be there. Hurry up! Why are you going so slow? Hurry up! Hurry up! You need to go faster! Blah blah. He would just be standing there right there, just yelling at me to go faster. And I was never fast enough, and all this shit. One day, I just didn't want to make sandwiches, so I hid the bread. I'm proud of it, but I hid the bread. I didn't want to make a sandwich that day. I was tired of his shit. I was tired of making sandwiches for my brother and myself, and tired of him yelling at me. So I hid the bread, and he searched for like a half an hour and couldn't find it. And like pretended to help because if I didn't, he would have gotten suspicious. He never found it until later that night when my brother and I had an argument. My brother ratted me out, and what did he do? Oh, it was hell. He lost it. He grabbed a metal fly swatter and hit me so hard that it left long bruises and welts on my arms and legs. And one of my teachers the next day, or a few days later, I don't know, one of in the next few days, noticed them, asked me if it was okay, asked me if I was okay, and asked me if she needed to call anybody. My dad came that close to child whatever services or anything. If I'd have said yes, I'm pretty sure he'd have gotten in a lot of trouble, but he never did, and he refuses to ever even acknowledge that. And he says it was just part of growing up. That was that was their whole thing. If you can't tell, I'm looking at a map of the newest Dungeons and Dragons expansion. Play it with my kids. We killed dinosaurs. We're the dino hunters. Pretty neat looking map. Just came out. Um, but like also my parents, they didn't set us up for any kind of college stuff. I had a couple little accounts that ended up coming at about $2,000 when I was 18, and that was it. That's all they did. As soon as I turned 18, basically, I was still in high school, but as soon as I turned 18, they were getting me to move. They're trying to get me to move out. They wanted me gone as I turned 18, out of the house, wherever. They didn't. It didn't matter that I didn't graduate. I didn't graduate from high school for another 3-4 months. Yeah, that's honestly the truth. So just to shut them up, and because I at that point I thought college would be ridiculously impossible. I joined the military, And I joined in August. I had a delayed enlistment because of the job I chose, and I didn't have to go. I didn't go until March, and my dad was furious about that. Thought I was just delaying, and this, and it really was out of my hands. I chose the job. The nearest I could get in for the class was March. That's it. So what happened? So we basically fought for from August to March, or August to February, and then he kicked me out. With less than a month to go before I was leaving for basic training, he kicked me out, and I lived with my aunt and uncle for a short time. That's pretty bad. Yeah.